Hi, I'm Yenna. I'm a modern ajumma, and for the first time this month in April, I kind of realized I haven't actually recommended books just because I really use this channel to talk about all of the books that I read, not just like my favorites or like good books, just what I think about them and what kind of thoughts they inspire. I also rarely talk about plot, like what it's about, because that's never what I think is the true importance of each book. If I say what a book is about, it'll be what its core message is. So I just want to throw that out there and personally be more cognizant about saying, yes, I recommend this, or like, this is for XYZ fans going forward. I said previously that I was gonna stop reading this series and just wait until they all come out at once and binge them, because honestly I was getting a little bit bored. But Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card series, this is number 13. Oh, it made me remember that this is for kids, and I remember the power that manga has over kids and young adults, and the influence of manga and what a great role models that manga characters make, how much the decisions that you make will shape your life, the value of a loving and supportive network of family and friends. Yeah, I was reminded how much I do love Cardcaptor Sakura. So I recommend this for this and the original Cardcaptor Sakura series that I grew up with. Not only because the artwork is, I mean, adorably stunning. It's just super wholesome, fun, and dramatic. I recommend this series for like if you find yourself needing to buy a gift for a young child and you have no idea what they might like. I recommend giving them a manga chapter or two, like a manga book or two. I read 5 Agatha Christie's this month, all from library audiobooks. Maybe some of you have been wondering, why is this bee obsessed with this irrelevant Agatha Christie lady? I don't know. I just grew up reading Agatha Christie's, and these past couple years I've been revisiting them, basically to see, like, are they good or was I young? Do they still hold up? Is she still relevant to current readers? The other factor to this is that I rediscovered the library these past few years, and I've been rereading them via this new and wondrous audiobook format, mostly read by Hugh Fraser, who is the actor who plays the character Hastings, and whose voice just sounds like butter that I could listen to for the rest of my life. And it's been overall a very enjoyable experience. Cat Among the Pigeons was written in 1959. It was read by Hugh Fraser, and it was fun. It was a romp. It's got a all-girls school setting. There's an international spy thriller element, and the classic Agatha Christie catty stereotypes interacting with each other. Of course, when we're talking about mid-century British pop culture works of fiction, that kind of goes hand in hand with colonialism, so there's some of that in here too. But nevertheless, this was a romp. It calls back Mrs. Maureen Summerhays from Mrs. McGinty's Dead, and that's always so fun when that happens, when you hear other characters from other books. The Moving Finger was written in 1943 and read by the actor Richard Grant. And I wasn't a fan of his performance, though I love his acting. Like, I still think about his character from Can You Ever Forgive Me, the movie with Melissa McCarthy. That's a great movie. But yeah, this is a Miss Marple book. I love Miss Marple. She's my spirit animal. And this book used to be one of my favorites until this reread, when Richard Grant's performance of our male main character, Jerry Barton, really reminded me how god-awful men are. Men are simply awful, and it's truly a shame our society demands that the majority of women must choose one of them. Joanna's not that great either. Yeah, I truly did not recall how terrible Jerry is in this. Kind of like not realizing until very recently how terrible Tom Hanks's character in You've Got Mail is. And that movie is my most watched movie of my life. And after watching it a bajillion times, only in the last like year or two did I finally realize like what an a-hole Tom Hanks's character is in You've Got Mail. Yeah, ordinarily I would think that Agatha Christie is being subversive, winking about men, but I just don't see it. There's a makeover scene in this book that really just made me think that she's projecting. Like, I love when Agatha Christie writes about romance. The reason why I probably like all of her romance so much is because she personally wants to be in such a romance, and like, it's what Agatha Christie loves. It's what she wants for herself. Like, she's writing in first person as this arrogant, entitled, strong man that she wishes she had or had the privilege to be. I mean, I had fun rereading this because I came to this conclusion. It made me think about this in a different way. The Murder at the Vicarage was written in 1930, and this was also read by Richard Grant. And in this one, I finally got it. I finally realized why I didn't like his performance, and it's because he plays the unpleasant blind man. First in The Moving Finger, it was Jerry Barton, and in Murder at the Vicarage, it's the dumb vicar who just doesn't get it, doesn't see like what's right in front of his eyes. There's also a policeman character named Colonel Melchett, who Richard Grant uses the most stereotypical Scottish accent for. Like, we're talking Shrek territory here, which kind of made me spin out. Like, Scottish people don't actually sound like Shrek, do they? Like, are there people who sound like Shrek? Is Melchett a Scottish name? I don't know. And in this, the class distinctions are so wild. And just a reminder of the differences in ideals between centuries, between the 20th century and our current 21st century, which, when we think about it, you know, it's easy to say it wasn't that much different from the 1900s to the 2000s, is it? As opposed to, like, if you were to think about the differences between, say, the 1700s and the 1800s. But actually, yeah, there were tons of differences between the 1930s and the 2020s. Like, there's a poacher character. We've got police not believing in women or poor people. And much to my chagrin, because this is another Miss Marple, who I love, who I saw myself as for many years, there is a throng of old village spinster Karens, including Miss Marple. Like, she is firmly in that demographic. And Pato read, I believe it was Body in the Library, another Miss Marple. That was like one of my favorite Miss Marples. And Pato described Miss Marple as cunty, which I am like LMAOing, you know? But also I was like, oh my God, they're right. Am I a cunty Karen? Like, I was spinning out. And you know, a couple years ago I would have said, oh, wholeheartedly, read Murder at the Vicarage. So fun. You'll never see it coming, which is still could be true. But now I'm also realizing, yeah, Miss Marple is demographically a Karen. Towards Zero was written in 1940, and this was read by Hugh Fraser. And apparently I last read this in 2019, according to my Goodreads, except I totally forgot about that, and I completely started this thinking this is gonna be my first read, which there are still a few Agatha Christie's out there that I haven't read yet. But yeah, immediately upon starting this and hearing some of the names, I instantly recalled the plot, the whodunit, and the how. And the religious miracle message of this is laid on very thick. This could have had domestic abuse inferences, but Agatha Christie really didn't, and instead kind of focused on the ingenious plot. Yeah, when I recalled reading this before back in 2019 and watching the adaptation, I recalled it being pretty fun, but upon this reread, it's kind of meh. And finally, the Cidified Mystery was written in 1931. This was also read by Hugh Fraser, and this was it. This was the Agatha Christie that broke me, that made me finally say stop, canceled the rest of my Agatha Christie library audiobook holds. I need a break. The plot just feels contrived. It's another like bright girl with a simple physical man. Like, all the classic patterns were there, but just it felt less, like the interactions were less personable, so there was that much less to care about. So this is it. This is the final Agatha Christie of the year for me. I still need to do the whole summer of last year's wrap up of all of the Agatha Christie, like of all the 20 something Agatha Christie's I read last summer. So that will still be coming, but that's gonna be it for a while. Nevertheless, no regrets. This has been very eye-opening. It's still been pleasant and very fun. And I consistently find Agatha Christie very enticing, interesting, relevant, just in different ways than I had before. I read Pond by Claire-Louise Bennett, which I would categorize as a booktube darling when it came out back in 2015. This was so poetic, like very lilting on the tongue. I'm aware that Claire-Louise Bennett is an Irish writer, so that explains that. And this reading experience was absolutely being dropped into the deep end of the pool of zero plot, all vibes. This was so awkward. This was so inaccessible. This was so lovely. And yeah, super vignette-y, like you are deep within the inner recesses of her brain, like meandering all over the place. Like she's planning a summer party and thinking the cool place to be is sitting on the ottoman of the living room. Like that's where you should be seen. That's the place to be seen and to see and be seen at this party. I can't even recall if she ended up throwing this party. I want to say no. Or like she's going on a walk and she sees this young man coming towards her or walking towards her direction and begins, middles, and ends this like torrid, wrenching affair in her head. And she imagines like fucking him, and we are deep in her thoughts of this encounter, and then he just ends up walking past her and like nothing happens in IRL. Or like she's having trouble with her oven and she's stressed out and she's thinking about a book that she's reading where the main character of the book has it worse than her, where the book is about the last woman on earth and the woman's counting how many matches she has left before she runs out and will die from cold and hunger. And she imagines how this woman might die long past the book's end. Since her death is not dealt with in the book, the only place it can occur is in my head, and I feel as though something is still haunting me, or even that I am still haunting something, which means the book carries on beyond where it ends, and no doubt this was the author's absolute wish. If we have lost the knack of living, I thought, it is a safe bet to presume we have forfeited the magic of dying. Everybody knows deep down that life is as much about the things that do not happen as the things that do, and that's not something that ought to be glossed over or denied, because without frustration, there would hardly be any need to daydream. And daydreams return me to my original sense of things, and I luxuriate in these fervid primary visions until I am entirely my unalloyed self again. So even though it sometimes feels as if one could just about die from disappointment, I must concede that in fact, in a rather perverse way, it is precisely those things I did not get that are keeping me alive. Yeah, I found this kind of exquisite, but at the same time, I was a little bit like whatever about it. Nevertheless, I am really enticed by Claire-Louise Bennett. I am reading Checkout 19 in May because I want to read more Irish literature, and I'm aware that there's this general sense, this general context within Irish lit where there's like a sense of awkwardness, not just socially, but like with your desires and your inner nature and the struggle to try to overcome that. Like Sally Rooney, even with Claire Keegan, there's so much unsaid, but in Pond, everything is said except for the very thing that needs to be said or like wants to be said. She's hiding behind explosions of words. So if you want to read something no plot, all vibes, multi-layered, deep within a woman's psyche, and nothing close to Ducks Newburyport, but no breaks, lots of stream of consciousness, give this a try. I read YN by Esther. I could not stop smiling the entire read. I was like this the whole time. so much joy, so much brain. This was fun. So much yearning, so wacky, so cerebral. This was a bullseye strike to the heart and the truth of fandom. Like, fandom is both a collective and a deeply personal, singular connection between you and the star. YN stands for your name when you're reading fan fiction, which I've never read and never really got into. And I don't think I can, because this book is kind of like fan fiction, but to like writing, and this is just absolute peak of writing for me. I'm spoiled. I feel like I can't possibly read any other fan fiction if it's not written in this way. But YN stands for your name. So when you're reading fan fiction, you're supposed to replace YN with your name so that it immerses you that much more into the story that you're reading. And YN on paper just looks so close to Yena that it was very easy for me to put myself into this story as well. But oh my god, the writing, guys. My spiritual sphincter stayed clenched to keep out the cheap and stupid. Moon runs onto the stage with flushed cheeks as if called out to battle, flanked by a boy on either side. Yena shouts his name like she used to whenever he would step off a train and fail to spot her among the strangers waiting on the platform. But now she's not the only one calling for him, and finds herself shouting in the same way as the others, as pure release without any hope of recognition. I took a step back, feeling as if a bull had dropped face down on the cockroach of me. Yeah, this was so funny. And yes, obviously, I did think about BTS. The main character of this book is fixated on a K-pop star, and I did think of Jimin. And while yes, I am ARMY, and if I see any of them IRL, I would absolutely lose my shit. But personally, I was thinking about the other people that I am currently idolizing. Like, not to spoil, but the general message of this book isn't necessarily never meet your idols, but further than that, to stop dehumanizing people and remind yourself that they are still people. And like, personally, there are so many booktubers that I watch who, if I were to ever meet them IRL, I would absolutely lose my shit. And I know that I've met Nathan of Nathan's Nook, the Pepperoni Playboy, the Saigon Garçon. Do you want the tea on Nathan? Well, I am here to tell you that he is the most lovely and wonderful and adorable person. Yeah, I just feel like I met like a brother that I never had. Like, I felt like his Nuna. I do give off some mad Nuna vibes. Yeah, I don't think I ever give off like oppa vibes. It's always like, I'm the Nuna. I'm your Nuna vibes. I am an Ajumma after all. Just, I know that they're people. And we have talked a little bit, but if I were to ever see Alex of What Page Are You On IRL, I would absolutely 100% crumble. And I'm like, why? Why? If I were to meet Matthew Sharapa, who I've like lately been obsessed over, and like every time in my head I'm like, Matthew, oh, Matthew Sharapa. Appa means daddy. Yeah, I don't know, like, oh my god, don't even get me started on the UK. Like, it's fairly safe to say that if you're a booktuber and you live in the UK, like, you might want to stay away from me. So I don't know what it is. Like, there is no smart reason to behave this way, to think this way, to idolize people in this way. Because at the end of the day, everyone is a human being, just like you and me. And we just gotta remember that. Yeah, we gotta keep our chill. So, if you like lit fic, but have been a little bored or underwhelmed, but by no means do you want things dumbed down, nevertheless, you still want something more spicy, give this a try. I read 3 books by Myra Coleman. Beloved Dog is a sweet, cute ode to the dogs in your life, your past history with dogs. There is some funny, kooky drawings, imaginative, creative visual storytelling. I don't think this is the whole title. Sarah Berman's Closet. This is a book about Sarah and her journey to America and eating lemon ices and the meaning of time. But what a sweet little book. This had a childlike narration of an immigrant story that's really all of our stories, with her signature writing style and acrylic paintings and personal photos. This was sweet, this was short, a reminder that the mundane is also magical. Sara and her older sister Shoshana devoured books. Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and Chekhov were their friends. They ate cake, they sang and they danced. For them, life in the village was a dream. The men were fine, but the women were wondrous. They took care of everything and everyone, and that was a lot. This book reminded me of the film Pain and Glory, directed by Pedro Almodovar, that I watched this month. And it's the one where Penelope Cruz plays Antonio Banderas' mom. But even though her part is very short, it shows like the power of women and mothers as a collective. They just make everything better. They make life for everyone in the community better, and how throughout cultures that is just a thing. And I read And the Pursuit of Happiness, which is so relaxing. It was so hopeful. It felt so intimate. It felt like looking through the most artistically, creatively made diary. And this was written right after the 2008 Obama elections, so it felt like a time capsule from that short span of super hopeful, optimistic time for America, all hyped up on democracy, liberty, equality, faith in our systems, the power of the individual, idealism of like local government, pursuit of happiness, like bake sales, spelling bees. Yeah, what an era that was, now long gone. And an absolute reminder of how transfiguring 2020 and the Trump era has proved itself to be. And this isn't the deepest by any means of books, but Myra Coleman's personality, her color choices, her brush strokes, her whimsy just make the total package for me. This was like a very pleasant Sunday kind of read. So if you like diaries, if you want to read a nonfiction, but you're turned off by the boredom, if you like looking at handmade things in book form, give this a try. I would say In the Pursuit of Happiness is the strongest. Sarah Berman's Closet is autobiographical, and Beloved Dog is the most frivolous. I'm not gonna say no to a cute, frothy dog book, okay? But all three, or really just all of Myra Coleman's books, I find to be deeply personal and precious and intimate, and you get a very strong sense of her personality. And last but not least, I read What Are You Going Through by Sigrid Nunes. As you know, I read The Friend last month and fell head over heels in love for Sigrid Nunes' writing, Sigrid Nunes' brain. And Alex of What Page Are You On commented recommending this book almost as like a sequel to The Friend. So what else am I supposed to do other than to immediately go and get it to read it? So I did. And yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, this really confirmed how much of a fan I am of Sigrid Nunes' writing, how I find her writing so intelligent, funny, personable, observational, and detached, yet warm and tender and very humane. I really enjoy seeing how she thinks, like what offbeat element that she'll focus on. Like the detail of a woman who likes the book Infinite Jest because it's a good bang for the buck. Like, she's tired of spending $20 on not even a weekend's worth of reading. And though it's a novel, this feels so much like nonfiction because it ultimately is, both this and The Friend, a meditation on the meaning of life, and almost like listening into older people's conversations and their thoughts at this time of their lives, like their past regrets and mistakes, their sources of happiness, the people that they knew. It dwells on a big topic that I personally think about, which is the moral aspect of having children at this time of human existence with climate change looming. And here perhaps was the last chance for us to redeem ourselves. The man raised his voice to say, the only moral meaningful course for a civilization facing its own end, to learn how to ask forgiveness and to atone in some tiny measure for the devastating harm we had done to our human family and to our fellow creatures and to the beautiful earth, to love and forgive one another as best as we could, and to learn how to say goodbye. And again, there's another fuckboy in this. Was it that he had changed so much, or that I had buried him so deep, 6 feet under my heart? Yeah, I got it. Now I just need to deep dive into the rest of Sigrid Nunes's canon, like instant love. So if you love reading an academic brain with an older woman's perspective whose quote game is strong, I highly recommend this. So that was everything I read in April. A lot of life happening in betwixt of all the reading. I think it was library week in April too. I don't know any of those national holidays that aren't real holidays. I only know dumb culture stuff like April 25th from Miss Congeniality. Oh, but speaking of movies, I've been seeing other booktubers just mention like some good movies that they watched over the month too, which I also want to participate in because I do love movies and they do influence a lot of my reading life. So as I mentioned before, I watched Pain and Glory, directed by Pedro Almodovar. I gotta say, I liked it a lot more than I anticipated. I do like Pedro Almodovar's movies in general because of just how kooky they are and how fun. But this one was so autobiographical, was so personal. And like, despite the multiple scenes of the main character huffing heroin, like it was really wholesome. And yeah, it was a really sweet movie and showing his true persona, like the true core of his personality. So yeah, it was super sweet. I really enjoyed it. The other movie that I really enjoyed was Bones and All, and I have no idea how Luca Guadagnino manages to capture that existential crisis of your 20s. Oh, I loved Bones and All. I cried so much. I got the book from the library, so I'm reading that in May. And the other movie that I really enjoyed in April was The Whale. The vast majority of criticisms that I heard about The Whale was that it's a so-so movie, but Brendan Fraser's great in it, which is just the laziest criticism. I really like The Whale. It's a great movie featuring literature. There's like a featured essay on Moby Dick that just had me in tears. Moby Dick is also one of the classics that I've never read, but I'm a little terrified of reading, and watching The Whale made me feel better about tackling that book eventually, whenever that happens. And yeah, there's so many great performances in The Whale. Like Hong Chau is incredible. So that's what I read in April. Hoping to watch more in May as well as reading more in May. I hope you guys all had a great reading month. Continue to have a great reading month, movie watching month. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon, and I really mean it because I'm sitting on so much content that I just really need to find the time and buckle down to edit them all and upload. So hopefully you'll be seeing like some rapid fire uploads from me in the next few days or weeks.